IPMNation.com.
Live from the Transitional Radio Uplink in Cuenca, Ecuador, you're listening to All Natural Being with guest host Henry G. Noel. What's the G stand for? Giddy up on IPMNation.com. Here's Henry.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 340th episode of Brian Brody's All Natural Being, the #1 rated show on IPMNation.com, and brought to you by Transitional Radio and IPMNation.com, AllNaturalBeing.com, and the new Brian Brody app with Fly on the Wall. Thank you. I'm getting a really... And welcome to the 340th episode of Brian Brody's All Natural Being, the #1 rated show on IPMNation.com, and brought to you by Transitional Radio. Now, we are live this evening on IPMNation.com, AllNaturalBeing.com, and new Brian Brody app, with Fly on the Wall video on Facebook and YouTube, with rebroadcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and the usual cast of characters. Now, we're broadcasting from our international uplink studios in Cuenca, Ecuador. And I want to thank our good friends at Wirecast for making it possible for us to broadcast globally. And since I'm thanking people, I would love to personally thank my brother Wayne for the absolutely amazing effort he has put into the production of this show. Thank you so much, Wayne. And while I'm at it, I want to extend a huge thank you to Brian Brody for trusting me with his brainchild. Now, the brain may have some issues, but the child just keeps on going. I also want to send out a big thank you to the impeccable Lee Raleigh for joining me last evening. Lee, I had a great time, and I cannot wait for our next broadcast. I would be remiss and probably living in the greenhouse if I didn't give a huge thanks to my wife, Rita, for putting up with all the time I am spending attempting to fill Brian's shoes. But my biggest thanks goes to you, our trusted listeners, for without you, well, I'd be sitting here talking to myself. And although that is probably nothing new for me, it is most enjoyable having you participating in the thread, listening in, sharing, and liking the rebroadcasts. My final thank you goes to our listening audience from all over the globe: the United States, Canada, Mexico, the UK, and Ireland, our good friends right here in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Nigeria, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Peru, Greece, Poland, Cambodia, and New Zealand. And for those of you joining us from all over the globe, welcome. It's great to have you here with us. My name is Henry Noel, guest hosting for the healing Brian Brody, and I am thrilled to be filling in for the man driving our bandwagon and being our virtual hitchhiker wherever we decide to go. So from here, in the other garden spot of the mortals, we just want you to know that your life is still your labyrinth. And regardless of what you believe, you get to call all the shots. Why subjugate yourself to the whims of others? And you were dealt a hand, so why not play it with gusto? You can muster, all the gusto you can muster, and play it the way you want to play it. No one should have more control over your life than you. So why succumb to your critics? Why allow the beliefs of others to derail you from your all-natural being? Don't get caught up in all the BS that others try to feed you. Use your primal scream to stand firm and proud, front and center, and don't place yourself on the back burner. You're worth more than that. That's why we're here, to be your friendly force, to place your heart's highest priority top of the list, reinstating the true wisdom and the wallop of your inner whisper, to terminate the turbulence in your life, to garnish the guilt you hold on to streamline your sensibility, all to out-brutal the brutal, and to discover how to bring on your own bold once and for all. Now, I'm trusting everyone had a good day, so before we dive into the thread, I decided to, since I would rather have a two-way dialogue rather than me sit here and preach to you, I'd like to start off with a question. And this is the question we'll cover today. We hear it from Brian every evening, and it's become just a catchphrase for him. So what I want to ask you is, what does it mean to you to bring on your own bold? And with that, I'm going to see if I can attempt to find the actual thread. So please excuse me a minute while I try to dial in here and catch up with everybody so I can say hello. And I'm going to try to do this correctly. Wayne has to teach me a little bit more on how to get into the threads here. So let's see. We watched the video. I don't think that that's going to be correct, but that's okay. Otherwise, I will go in here. Let me bring this up. Find out where we are. And I'll have to make sure there we go. Now we have a thread. All right. Rita, good evening. Let's see. Marcellus, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Marcia, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Rita's keeping up pretty good. Wayne, glad to have you on board. Believe me. Lee, thank you so much. Had a great time, too. Thank you so much. It was fun. I can't wait. Yep, I think you've got it. It seems to be a right way, Rita. Be your own person. Don't be consumed with being concerned with what others think. You are your own person, and you're right. That is all that there else is. Marcellus, hello. How are you? So my question to you is, how do you bring on your own bold? I mean, I could go ahead and give a dissertation if that's what's required, but my views and my meaning of bringing your own bold isn't really important. It's really, I'm more concerned with what you all think. And that's really what I want to try to dive into. It's one thing to be able to say it all the time and to see it come up every evening, but I really am interested in your views on bringing on your own bold. Now, part of it I see is kind of stripping away all of the learnings that got us where we are now, afraid to bring on our own bold. And so we all have that mashugana that we have to deal with. And I would love to see and understand where you all are on it. And as I'll keep looking to see at the thread and see what's going on. So anyway, what is it that we have to do? And since part of what Brian and my attempts are is to go ahead and encourage you and to step forward, to stand up for yourselves, to thick skin, to not be part of the entire world, the way society sees things and being that way, but to understand what the value is in your own life and what it really takes and what it is that you want to see happen for yourselves. And obviously part of this is to find out so that we know how we can go through and try to encourage that and how to help and to do what we can to make your life enjoyable and fun and find your happiness again. Dig in deep and rediscover it. So that's really where we have to go. Thank you, Marcelo. Prayers for Brian, a speedy recovery. Absolutely. He is having the shunt adjusted. So what it is they'll make an adjustment and turn it down so it's not draining as much of the cerebral spinal fluid. And then next week he does it again. And then he'll do that for the next 5 to 7 weeks until they finally can get the shunt shut off. And then they can remove the shunt. So that's why it's going to be a little while for him to regain his composure as far as that. And believe me, I'm sure, even though they told him bed rest, I'm sure he's working his butt off. So Yeah, thank you very much, Marcellus. I appreciate it, and I'm sure he will send you a thank you too. So, I believe me, nobody wants a more speedy recovery for Brian than me. I swim in these shoes, I'll tell you. So anyway, back to the question: what do we have to do? What else can we do to really get you to bring on your own bold? And to me, it's critical. It really is critical. We listen to the show, we have the show, and we understand that how difficult it really is. But at the same time, we also know how easy it is to finally do once you understand the parameters with which it has to be done. So, what can we do? How can we do? I always say that we're covered with shrouds from our learnings that have buried our happiness, our contentment so deep inside that we've lost sight of it. And fear from the different social groups that we deal with, whether it be the government, the churches, or just life in general, we keep more and more shrouds on us, and by keep our happiness buried and more buried until we absolutely don't agree that we have any happiness, and we think we have to go outside to go find it, that we have to find happiness in someone else or in some other organization, or we have to find happiness eating ourselves to death. Whatever it is that we think we have to go find happiness, because we've lost sight of the fact we already have it. It's so there. We were born with it. It has never gone away. We've just covered it up and covered it up and covered it up till we don't recognize it anymore. And so absolutely trying to understand why we can't face our own bold, why we can't really bring it out. Why is it we're so intimidated? What is it that causes us to be so intimidated? And why is it that we allow people to take over our lives, control us the way that they control us? All of it has been learning. We have learned how to do this. They have taught us extremely well on how to do this. And so please, as you dial in, as you thread in, or as you ponder listening to it on the rebroadcasts, really ask yourself that question. How? What does it mean to you? For one, what does bringing on your own bold mean to you? And the other part of it is, do we have a reservation to bringing on our own bold? And if we do have a reservation, why? What is the reservations? What is it that keeps us from living our lives? It's our labyrinth. It's our decisions, where we go, left or right, up or down. It's ours. It's our life. And yet none of it has been lived by us. We haven't made the decisions. It's been decided for us what our path was going to be. But we can create our own path just by deciding we're not going to live the way we are now, and bring it on. Bring on our own bold. Do what we can do to just survive in this world, but beyond survival, out there and enjoy it. There's no reason not to. We put so many reasons on ourselves to stop us, to keep us from enjoying it. And that's what I think Brian and I would love to stop, to see us just develop and grow into the people that we are supposed to be. It's no longer a continue to find a separation, the reasons for separating ourselves. It's time to unite. It's time to bring ourselves together. It's time to realize all of the meshugana that we have counted on and see ourselves, define ourselves by, being Democrat or Republican, or being a doctor or a lawyer or a laborer, or being a television show host or a radio host, or being a priest, or being an imam, has nothing to do with who we really are. That's a title. Has nothing to do with identifying who we are. But yet, this is how we define ourselves. You can ask so many people, hey, my name is so-and-so. Who are you? Well, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a doctor. No, that's what you do. That's not who you are. And we have lost sight of this ability to differentiate titles. And it all falls back into ego. It all falls back down to what ego has taught us to do. Again, ego has been very important in our lives because it's gotten us through childhood and gotten us into adulthood. The problem is that we held on to it while we're adults, and we seem to live by it. And it governs us and controls us and manipulates us. And everything that we deal with succumbs, and we have to succumb to our egos. So it is very, 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 very hard to define. Rita mentions, yes, how many people hide behind titles. We identify by them. We disagree with each other because of it. I mean, you have a Democrat and Republican Party that can't even talk to one another because they're so bent on their titles. And they're nothing of the sort. They're not Democrat or Republican. They are people. They're brothers and sisters. And have justified to themselves that this is what they're going to do. And the problem with it is that everybody who is living within the United States or within whatever country dealing with the governments that are there that can't seem to get along, the parties can't get along, it's the people that suffer. Because you no longer, one, you can't talk to your representatives. They really don't have any time for you. And they can't talk to their own party members because of so many of the differing views and the different wants that they have for themselves. And, well, they talk about it as being part of what my constituency wants, but it's what they want. And so we've lost it. We completely lost sight of what reality is all about. And we think that what's out there, and the term is thrown to me so many times, the world, you think that that's reality, but it's just an illusion. And I'm trying to wrap myself around that, my mind around the concept of it, because you can go out there and touch a tree and it's there. But that, I don't believe, is what they mean by that. The illusion is the way the world is. It's us living a life of illusions, and then the universe, the world, becomes a reflection of us living an illusion. And I think that's where they mean by it's an illusion out there. And we have placed our values on different things that don't matter. The importance in relationships, the honesty within relationships, the responsibility within relationships. And I don't mean just partner relationships. I mean relationships with coworkers and with church members or with just society in general. And different countries. We don't have the responsibilities. We don't claim them anymore, not like we used to. And that's what's, I think, destroying society. And I think that's part of why we have such trouble bringing on our own bold. We seem to we've lost contact with ourselves. And it's been so well insulated. We have, like I said, covered up with so many different shrouds that we have insulated ourselves from ourselves, not the world. We have actually baited ourselves, placed ourselves out there to be ridiculed. And we have no way of understanding it or handling it or even knowing why we got out that far. So, yes, we do need to do a lot of work, and we do have to do things to try to thicken our skins and not be so hurt or sensitive to what the words people use. When people use words and they are intended to hurt you, and all of a sudden it doesn't hurt you, they will do two things. One of two things. One, they will go to somebody else and try to hurt them with the words, or they'll stop using the words. So, in essence, the involvement that we do, the reactions that we have, whether they're outwardly hostile or, as a reaction against somebody, or it's an internal reaction and we stew about it and we get hurt and upset and angry and we keep it all inside, all we've done is fed the fire. We've allowed people to take more control of our lives. That is what we have to stop doing. It's simply, we won't succeed otherwise. Hi, Jenny. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Thank you. We're talking about what does it mean to us to bring on our own bold. We hear Brian talk about it every evening. He mentions it so many times in the evening. And I just throw out the question of what does it mean to each of us to bring on our own bold? And I mentioned that I see it as stripping away all of the learnings that have made us who we are. And we are afraid to bring on our own bold. And that's what we're trying to talk about this evening. So, and if you've got any comments or any suggestions or any ideas on the subject, please jump in. I really would appreciate it. So, yeah, back to where we're going. What are we going to do? And it's up to us to make the changes. It's up to us to do that. With some great spiritual people out there talking, and when I say the word spiritual, I don't mean religion. That's the last place I'm going to find spirituality is in religion. It just doesn't exist. It's all about the religion and not about the spirituality of it all. So that's really what we're trying to do and trying to understand is where we're going. Back to the thread for a minute. Hi, Jenny. Thank you. Yeah, part of it for you is looking at yourself, what I like and what I don't like, recognizing both, and work to build on what you like and change what you don't. It's a hard part to look in the mirror and admit to yourself the good and the bad. Wow. Thank you, Jenny. That is absolutely wisdom. That is wisdom. Absolutely. You know, our best judge of who we really are is the mirror. And that everybody that I work with, that's one of the main requirements is you have to be looking in the mirror daily, getting familiar with who your reflection is, and then deciding what it is you like about that reflection, what is it you don't like about that reflection, what needs to change in that reflection, what are you willing to change, and what are you willing not to change. And every day, and the cycle, and I only say this because I've gone through the same thing. There are moments when I absolutely love that reflection. And there are moments that I am totally embarrassed by it. And it vacillates on a moment-to-moment basis, depending on what I hear, what I say, what I do, what I see done, and my reactions to that. I can see myself pretty, I see myself ugly. And it, like I said, it changes. It morphs from moment to moment. But it is the best judge of who we really are. If we're ever going to be honest with ourselves, I mean, because we do know when we lie to ourselves. We know when we're lying. But when you can finally face the mirror and face the truth in that mirror, that's the first step. Then you have to decide whether you want to do something about it. And if not, it's a decision. And you go down the path and continue on your life. And if you do want to do something about it, then we can sit down and start deciding what is it? What's the pathway we're going to have to take to get you onto your own path and get you off of the path that you've been walking all this time? So very, very fabulous, Jenny. Thank you so much. That is very, very good. We all have pasts. We have all grown up. We didn't get to this age. We weren't born this age. Let's put it that way. So we have gone through growing up to get to where we are. And every step of the way, we have been influenced by one person or thing or another. And the other night, there were several people that brought up, our infants, children born, where they're spoiled, or are they born this way? I honestly don't believe they are. I believe infants are as innocent as they can possibly be. It's the influences, the external influences that teach them how to be the way they are. And it's the reinforcements. And an example I threw out there was, well, let's say, for example, a child walks up and takes the toy from another child. Well, the first reaction, you're slapping their hands and you're throwing the toy down, or you're handing it back to the other child and thinking that you're instilling responsibility or respect into the child. But having that child give that toy back and explain that there are different ways of doing that, and teaching them how to ask. We justify and we reinforce the negative on many, many occasions. And I go back into training when I trained dogs. You know, you have a puppy, and the puppy is whining. And so you pick the puppy up and you stroke the puppy, and you have just reinforced the whining. And then you wonder why, as the dog grows up, it whines. Well, because you reinforced it. A dog, it barks. And every time it barks, you call it over, you pet its head, and you say, now stop barking, stop barking. It doesn't understand the English or whatever language you want to talk about, but it understands the stroking that you just reinforced it barking, and it will continue to bark. Well, we're no different. Children are no different than that. They understand the reinforcement, and you stroke the negative reaction, and you've just given the reaction that the child needs, and to continue its process. Misty, hello, welcome. How are you this evening? We're talking about one of the phrases that Brian uses all the time is bring on your own bold. And my question tonight is, what does that really mean to everybody? Does everybody understand what bringing your own bold really means? And that's what we're talking about. So you are welcome to jump in at any time, Misty. Thank you. Wilson, good evening. How is it in Peru? Thank you for joining in with us tonight. It's wonderful to see your name pop up. Thank you. Jenny, exactly. I heard one person say once, no one says worse things about you than you tell yourself. Man, isn't that the truth? We are our biggest critics. And it's another learned action. Because we've tried to compensate. We're trying to learn how to unlearn what we've already learned, to try to improve ourselves and make ourselves a better in this world. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we are so hypercritical, and I am honest to blame right here. I am the same way. I criticize myself constantly, even with this. I mean, I'm so far out of my comfort zone. Believe me, it's this is not comfortable for me doing this, but I am so far outside of my comfort zone that yes, I'm hypercritical about myself and about what I do and what I say and how I do it, and what, am I looking at the camera right, or is this a radio show with a camera feed? And I'm trying to come to terms with myself in doing the same situation. Now, I can sit down and write, no problem. I can sit down and write. I'm by myself, and I get to talk to myself, and I get to do all of those fun things. But here, it is totally different, and I love Brian. He's done so much to try to make me relax and to have me feel comfortable with what I'm doing. Just be yourself. Right. Where's the mirror? I got to find out who myself is now, because I'm outside of my familiarity. In a month, maybe things will be a little bit different. I'll feel much more comfortable. I'll feel much more at home. Who knows? And maybe I won't. And I'll fight this every step of the way. So we'll see what happens. Wilson, hi, Wilson. How are you? It's so good to see you. It really is. No, thanks, Jenny. I really appreciate that, and I wish you were my mirror right at the moment. I do that. So yeah, this is fun. But back on course here. We have a lot of roadblocks that keep us from bringing on our own bold. Again, our learnings, our teachings, our political affiliations. We don't want to step on people's toes. Our religious affiliations. Our religion has done so much good in beating us down that that's my biggest compliment to them, is thank you so much for all that you have done to harm me. I mean, wow, it's amazing. I was raised a Catholic, and my own experiences have been just tremendously negative as far as I'm concerned. It is not the way to go. I totally get the spirituality of things. I totally do that. But boy, the church is not the place to find spirituality. It's just not there. I love it. Thank you very much, Jenny. I think that's cool. So when we get into the things we have to do to learn to bring on our own bold, it's going back to our childhood. It's going back to before we started learning all of this stuff. We had our bold, and we unconditionally trusted the people that we relied on to raise us. And that is the first place where we were betrayed. I mean, I love my mom and dad. I mean, I absolutely love them to death. But the bottom line is that's where we were betrayed. We were taught how to be who we are now. And we were set on that path based on what they taught us. They knew no better than what they did, and they didn't mean any harm by it. You also have to remember they had to fall back on how they were raised, as their parents had to fall back on how they were raised. And all of these generations after generations, we are now faced with who we see in the mirror. We are faced with the society that we have out there. We're faced with a world that is out there that sees us all as separate individuals. And that to reach out a hand to join one another there's too much suspicion, too much hate, too much discrimination, too much us and them. That is not what it's supposed to be about. Good evening, Emilio. How are you? Wow, it's great to see your name show up on the thread. Wow, I like it. Thank you. We are talking about Brian Browdy, who is the host of the show, uses a term constantly, bringing on your own bold. And I'm just simply asking people, what does that mean to them? And do they see themselves being able to bring on their own bold? Or do they have reservations for bringing on their own bold? And if they do, why? And what are those reservations? So thank you. Join the thread if you'd like. It would be great. Yeah, Rita brings the point that my mom and dad had passed on only what they grew up with. And that's what every parent does. They bring on what they grew up with. And, of course, what they turned into as adults. And that is really what we deal with. And so we bring all of that with us. So if we go back to the child before we started learning, which is just almost instantaneously, we have a better idea of what we are really all about. And we get to cut through all of those shrouds. When a child is, an infant is totally trust. I mean, it doesn't understand what trust is, but it totally trusts its parents because it knows no other thing. A child will cry when it's wet or when it's uncomfortable. It doesn't understand why it's crying. It doesn't have that concept yet. A child will cry when it's hungry. It doesn't understand that concept of being hungry. It just knows that when it cries, because it's hungry, or it cries and it gets fed and gets satiated, then it doesn't cry anymore. It stops crying. Same thing with it being uncomfortable. It's not until we develop the consciousness of growing up and being a child that we understand, okay, I'm hurt, therefore I'm crying. I fell down, I scraped my knee, and now it hurts, and so I'm going to cry. So this is what we're trying to show. Where do we go back to get our own bold? Heather, thank you for joining us. Good evening. And Wilson, thank you. The first religion must be love. Absolutely, because our temple, that's our hearts. Beautifully stated, Wilson. Thank you so very much. Now that is live from Peru. There it comes. Yes, we have got to understand that love is what the primary thing is. We unconditionally love as infants because we know no different. It's simply that's the trust we built up that turns into love, and this is what we have. We're taught hate. We're taught discrimination. We're taught our differences. I mean, I'll give you a personal example. I grew up in Flushing, Queens, in a very mixed neighborhood, and I mean, in the neighborhood there were Germans, there were Irish, there was us. We were French and Japanese. There were Puerto Rican people from Puerto Rico, people from Africa. There were American blacks. There were we had the gamut of everybody that you could possibly think of in our neighborhood. I did not know discrimination. I would sit with a friend of mine. His name was Clarence. We called him Cupcake. He was one of 16 children. There were 18 people living in the house with the uncle and aunt. I would come to dinner. It was an entire black family. I was the only white person at the table. I never knew it. It never dawned on me. And when Butch and his brother would come over and have dinner with us, it never dawned on us that they were a different color. Then I moved to Long Island when I was 12 and moved into an all ethnic neighborhood, all white, and I fought every day. It was just the way it was. So we didn't know. You don't know as a child. You don't know discrimination. You don't know prejudice. You're taught this. And we have to untreat this. We have to unlearn it. It is not of any benefit to us. It is terribly, terribly harmful for us. Emilio, thank you for participating. My parents always told us the right way to be. We didn't do all of what they told us. Of course, we know children do, but do now. We pay the price for not listening. And yes, man, you really do. It's very interesting how we grow up and what happens to us as we go through the process of growing up, and all of the things that we take for granted now that are normal. We see it's normal to have them fighting in Congress. We see it's normal to not talk to one another. We see it normal to disrespect the titles of political positions. But again, they're titles, and they're only required because we can't take care of ourselves. Think about it. Think about the reason for government. If we could all get along, we could bring on our own bold, we could be responsible and respectful, we could see the world in peace, we didn't discriminate, we didn't do things that required us to be, so we didn't steal from each other, we didn't overstep our bounds, we weren't egotistical. We wouldn't need a government. But we have it because we're too immature to take care of ourselves. We're too immature to do the things that are right for us. That is the biggest issue that I think we face. It would be so much different if we hadn't been just totally beaten up by our egos and allowed everything out there that influences us, which actually is influencing our ego, that then influences us. And I mean, I'll go at it with this way. We are pushed and pushed and pushed to be in debt. Pretty much a common thing with everybody. And if you don't believe me, then do you own the home that you live in? I mean, if you're not paying rent where someone else owns it, but you own a home, are you making payments on it? You're in debt. The car that you drive, is it completely paid for? Or are you making payments on it? We have become adjusted. Our education, we went into debt for our education. We go into the supermarket and we use a credit card. I had written a thing on a sample of a sample means with which I could gain control over the world. And it's something that I just very simplistic, but I put it up there. And maybe on Sunday, I'll use that as my way of trying to explain how this works. But we have been convinced that living in debt is norm. It's a normal thing. I remember back when my mom and dad were first getting ready to buy their own home, their first home. And they scrimped and they saved, and everything had a little can or a jar where they put their money for the food and for the clothes, and they for the future child they put their money in a tin can for their car. They didn't have loans for the car. They paid cash. I mean, they simply saved up until they could afford it, and that was the way it was. Now we have to have it now. Ego requires us to have it right now, and everything out there pushes us to do that. And so that is part of what I want people to understand is the reason why we don't have the bold. It got hijacked a long time ago, and we have to get it back. It's something we have to do. And that's what this show is about. That's what Brian has been trying to get you to do. And I figured, since he uses that term as a routine to explain what it is that he's trying to get you to understand, I just figured, well, let's see if how much we really do understand about bringing on your own bold, and really pushing the envelope as to what is required of us to do just that. And so again, it's not simple. It's not an easy thing. It really isn't. There's so many nuances involved in it. In every aspect of our lives, we are influenced in one way or another. We're pushed one way or another. We're being convinced to go one way or another. And what we need to do is simply stop. Just stop. And stop listening to what's being pushing us down a path that we didn't create in the first place. Stop. Look in the mirror. And if you're not happy, why are you not happy? You should be. It's in there. So what do we have to do to get back down to the happiness that you had when you were just a child? How do we get you to understand the completeness that you feel? We have to strip it away and get back to that child. That's where the completeness was. Where that contentment is. Why are we not content? We have to get back to that. The terms that you hear, where, a couple will get together, or a guy will say, wow, man, so-and-so, you complete me. Not good. Because you should be complete already. You're not doing anybody a service, and especially yourself, if you're trying to find completeness and happiness through something else, someone else, somewhere else. Because as soon as the newness wears off, it's not acceptable anymore. It's not enough. And that is your ego. That's the ego playing its games. It requires so much. And we have spent our whole lives doing everything we can to satisfy ego. And it's like a bottomless pit. No matter how much dirt you throw in it, you will never fill up that hole. That's ego. And we have got to gain control of that. We have to put ego on a back burner, and we have to start deciding the things for ourselves. We have to start recognizing when ego speaks that it's not us. When ego wants, that's not our wants. When ego demands, it's not our demands. And we have to learn and differentiate from both of those. What is it? And who is it that's really talking? Is it us, or is it the ego? And once we can recognize those two, then we can start thinking for ourselves. Then we can start bringing on our own bold. Then we can start doing all of the things that we need to do to start unlearning all of the stuff we've learned, so that we can get to our all natural being, so that we can bring on our bold. And all of a sudden, the things people say won't bother us. The things that people do won't bother us. And we won't have a problem standing up and saying, sorry, not acceptable. You've got to do something different about this. And then we have the gumption. Then we have the spine. Then we have those things. Brian was always funny using the steel folding chair from a statement that my son had made. That sometimes that people just get him so angry, he just wants to whip him with a steel chair like the wrestlers do. And and Brian really he connected with that right really quick. But that's our reaction. That's what we do. This is why we are the way we are. We see, and people justify. I'm just keeping an eye on the time too. Heather, hi, how are you? We're looking at the time, 10 minutes to go. We see ego, and people confuse ego a lot. I've heard the arguments that ego is we need ego because that's what brings the inspiration, brings our creativity. That's where artists get their ability to paint. That's where musicians get to develop the music that they write. And I guess I disagree with that because I don't think it's ego. I think it's inspiration. And I think it depends on where it's coming from. If you, and let's face it. Yes, you can have creativity from ego, and you can look around the world and see exactly the creativity you've got from ego: hatred, war, fear, discrimination. This is the creativity. You have groups that can't talk to one another, religious sects that we can't even communicate with one another. You got Congress, can't even talk to one another. So that's where the ego's creativity comes in. But inspirational creativity comes from spirit. It's a spiritual thing. And it's the energetic side of things. It's what's not tangible for us because we are so physical. We don't understand the world outside of our senses. Our five senses are so limiting. And it's until we can really realize where inspiration comes from. And most inspiration doesn't come from us. It comes from outside of us. Ego inspiration comes from within us. That's the things we've learned. But the inspiration, the creativity from inspiration, that is what really sets us aside and sets others aside from the norm, because that's what tries to correct the world, is the inspirational creativity, and not the physical creativity, ego bent creativity. So that is a large part of where we want to go. Wilson, thank you for the comment. Sometimes saying sorry is not enough. We must work for it. And it's absolutely true. We always have that as a cop-out. We do something that is that we've done to hurt somebody, maybe unintentionally, but we did it. Maybe with our words, or maybe what we've done. And you're right. Sometimes saying you're sorry is just not good enough. Usually it's not sincere enough. You do have to earn that. Just like respect. Respect was something that used to be, you earned it. You earned respect. And a lot of times it was simply just being in the place that you were at because you were so worth in supporting and helping a community. And you earned respect that way. People, I don't think they even think about respect. I think they think they deserve it, or give them a title and they deserve respect just because they have a title. And I'm sorry, that's not the way it is. Being responsible to yourself. First, being responsible to yourself, then you can, and that develops into responsibility for others. We're not here to commandeer the time. We are here to learn. We're here to learn the correct stuff, not do what we're doing. I mean, with the short period of time we're here, and all we've done here is learn how to hate, learn how to discriminate, learn how to cheat, steal, and lie. And we've gotten good at it. We're really good at it. I mean, usually the best ones are the ones that get elected to office. And they practice it all there. They don't even hide it anymore. It's just simply, it's okay. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not okay. It's not acceptable. I'm not going to stand for that. That's where I draw the line. It's not acceptable anymore. And I don't want to see society go down the road that it's going. I want to see us unite. I mention it all the time. I'll say it as often as I possibly can. There's only one race on this planet, and it's called the human race. And anybody that tells you different, they're a liar. And they simply don't deserve the respect, because all it is condoning an ego-driven process of separation. And I don't think they will be happy until we're separated, where we are actually, our image in a mirror separates us from ourselves. That's when they'll be happy. And I can understand why they do that. Because you take 8 billion people on this planet and you put them together and you unite them, nobody is going to stand up to that. So the best way to have control over everybody, cut you down into smaller groups, chop you up into smaller pieces. I can deal with that. I can control that. I can make decisions easily, and you won't even know what's going on because I can distract you. So 8 billion people united, the powers that be will have a tremendous amount of fear. And that is exactly what they're trying to keep us from doing. So let's do what we can to unite. Start by learning how to bring on your bold. Learn how to look at yourself in the mirror. Look how you can, one, judge yourself by not judging yourself. Simply recognize what it is you don't like, and then we'll find out the ways on how we can fix it. But until we're able to look in the mirror and admit to ourselves who we are, what we're about, what makes us tick, what's the driving force behind us, we don't have a chance. We simply don't have a chance, because there's no way we can teach that to children. Children now in schools, the bullying that goes on, the intimidation that goes on, because those children are so insecure, they know that this is what they've been taught. I can outdo you. I can outstrengthen you. I can beat you up. I can take your money. I can take your lunch, because they can. Because that's the way they have it. That's the way they see the world. This is the parameters with which they were raised with. And the majority are stuck dealing with those bullies because of that same thing, the insecurity that they have to deal with. So we have to start pulling together. We have to do this. Jenny, ego says you're not good enough. Absolutely true. But it also says I'm not good enough. Absolutely true. And it doesn't even understand the fact that it isn't good enough. It is so demanding that, yes. And it comes from the insecurity of ego, which is why we deal with egotistical people. Those are probably the most insecure people that you can ever come to know. And they do everything they can to try to push the issue that they are in control. When they are so out of control of themselves, they don't even realize it. They've given total control over to ego, and ego doesn't even have a clue what to do with it except run amok and destroy everything that it comes into its power. Got down the last couple of minutes, so I do want to extend a big thank you to all of y'all that have been on the thread. Thank you so much for your input. I truly much rather have a two-way than to sit here and preach. That's not what I like to do. I really love to sit down and just have the questions come in and get the relationship going. And hopefully across time, as I'm on Brian's show longer, hopefully that'll happen a lot more, and we'll be able to do this a lot more. And I'll keep bringing up the topics. And again, is it better to post what the topic will be to give you guys a chance to think about it before we come online? Or is it good to just kind of throw it at you and make you really think that way? Let me know, because I'll do whatever way it is easier for everybody, and what way we can get more of the communication going. I appreciate your time. I really do respect your time. You have a lot of things you could be doing, and to share this time with me, thank you. I can't thank you enough. And I totally do respect you for that. So thank you. And I'll have my brothers go ahead and start winding down so we can actually close it off with the 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock time frame. I guess it is. It's 8 o'clock for me, but 9 o'clock for y'all, for many of you. So thank you. I will go ahead and do what I can to keep the show living up. And all the suggestions and opinions that you have, please don't hesitate to send them to me. www.henrygnoel.com is the website, and henry@henrygnoel.com is the email address. So please, right away, let me know what you want, what you think, and suggestions will be grateful. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I will turn this over to my brother. The handoff. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening. And we're done for this week. So thank you. And we'll see you on Sunday evening.
IPMNation.com.